Hi everyone, welcome back. I want to welcome here Matt Szwedzicki, the Managing Director of Cobar Metals Limited, with ticker code WC1, Whiskey Charlie 1. At Cobar Metals, he oversees a diverse portfolio of projects focused on critical minerals such as copper and antimony at its Bulla Park project, as well as gold copper exploration in Western Australia. Today, Matt is here to update us on the latest developments from the Bulla Park project and Salatza Critical Minerals project, highlighting Cobar's strategic approach to meeting the growing demand for these essential minerals. Welcome back, Matt.
Good morning. Thanks very much for having me.
Fantastic. Well, look, Matt, we have a lot to get through since our last meeting, and you've obviously got a lot to update us. So let's dive right in. So first and foremost, what are the key outcomes from the recent metallurgical test results at Bulla Park, and how do they impact the project's potential?
Our Bulla Park project is in New South Wales, and it's a copper antimony project. So we've had a number of drill holes in there. We've discovered large intervals of copper and antimony in a mineral called tetrahedrite. And what's quite unique is that tetrahedrite is different to most other copper or antimony deposits. It's actually quite a unique system we've got there, and we're quite excited about what we've got. But when we've been drilling it out, we've always had this question in the back of our minds of, because it's a little bit different, is it going to be good or bad in terms of processing relative to other copper and antimony projects? So what we've done is commissioned a series of metallurgical test work with a very well-experienced lab in Queensland. And really the idea was, is it just do some initial testing and see, is it looking positive or is it not looking positive? And what we found so far, and there's still preliminary stages, but the very first tests that we've done have been exceptional. So the first step the lab took was to float some of our samples, and what they did was basically created a high-grade copper, antimony, and silver concentrate on their very first pass with no optimization. It just floated really well. So that was highly encouraging for us. Good recoveries, excellent grades, tick. We were very happy with that. Then the next question is, what do you do with that concentrate? So what we wanted to do was take it a step further and see if we can remove the antimony and separate it. Because ideally, I think, as the highest value saleable products, you'd have a copper and silver concentrate separate to an antimony product. And so then we went back to the lab and said, okay, what can we do to remove this antimony and create a separate product? And they basically suggested a simple leach process, which they've done before with other ores. And that leach targets the antimony out of the concentrate. And the result of that leach, which again was first test, no optimization, finished several weeks ago. Fantastic results. Basically, they recovered pretty much all of the antimony from the high-grade concentrate. So what we've now got to a stage is we've got the ability to make a copper and silver concentrate and a separate antimony product, as proved by this lab, which is actually, it's a bit of a fundamental point for the project, because up until now, we've been unsure of what the processing might look like and whether it would be difficult or not. But this is showing us that it actually might be a blessing in terms of the mineralogy. It looks like the processing could in fact be simpler than what we had envisaged, and we're very encouraged by these initial tests from the Met Lab.
Sounds very exciting. Well, I guess, following off that question, obviously following the successful flotation and the leach test, what's the next steps here to optimize the process at Bulla Park?
So we've obviously got a number of options with further met work. One thing that we're doing right now is looking at, once we've got the antimony leached out, what step do we take it to? So we're looking at precipitating the antimony, and the antimony market is it's quite a unique beast, and there's a lot of demand at the moment. There's limited supply, and what we're doing is just understanding where that demand is coming from and what sort of antimony product they're looking for. And that will shape how we progress with the Met Lab in terms of the next steps of getting to that antimony end product. So there's a bit of work there to get to an optimal end product. We're very confident, that we'll be able to optimize it as well. We've got a number
Mm-hmm.
of steps we can optimize, both through the concentrate, through the leaching stage, and then through the precipitation stage. There's a lot of optimization there, and and just sort of ability to improve results, based on the very first runs that we've had. So I think the network continues for us. It's showing to be really positive. It's showing that there's a lot of upside there still. So we're definitely focusing on that. The other thing we're focusing on is looking at the scale of this deposit. So we know we've got a deposit here. We've drilled through mineralized zones, and they're thick zones. And what we're trying to do is figure out how big it is. So we're looking at putting together an exploration target for the area, and we're just trying to understand what sort of scale this might be, down the line, as we drill it out. In order to drill it out, we're looking at, do we drill it ourselves or do we get a partner in? And we've got a number of early stage discussions in that regard as well. Companies are always looking at more copper exposure, and so we've got some very early stage conversations going on, because maybe it makes sense for us to bring in a partner to help drill some additional holes and fund the next step of that development.
Exciting. And so look, without doubt, with antimony prices rising due to geopolitical factors, China restricting export and of the supply, and also with increased demand around the world, particularly in the US, in the military uses. I mean, how does this, I guess, influence the commercial strategy for Bulla Park?
It's really interesting. The more we delve into the antimony market, the more we realize that it's in chronic imbalance. So basically, demand for antimony has been going up, and it's driven by a number of factors, but a large one actually is solar cells. So solar PV around the world. Antimony increases the efficiency of the solar PV cells by a substantial amount. So there's more and more antimony being put towards solar PV cells around the world. In addition, of course, it's a metal used in defense, and unfortunately, the world's quite an unstable place at the moment, and so a lot of countries are looking to shore up their defense supplies, and that leads into demand for antimony. And at the same time, you have exports from the main producing countries, such as China, and also declining supply from existing mines around the world. So there's a real imbalance, and there's no real short or medium term solution that is obvious. So there's not that many antimony developments underway. There's not that many new mines planned that will produce antimony, and I think West Cobar is quite uniquely positioned with its Bulla Park project, because we have identified a substantial mineralized system with antimony in it. And what we'd like to do is work that up into a development so we can ultimately feed into that supply imbalance and that gap in antimony supply.
Excellent. Now, look, I want to segue into another product, which is copper and gold. So, especially at Fraser Range. So, what are the current exploration strategy for the Fraser Range copper and gold targets, and what challenges are you addressing there?
So the Fraser Range project is in WA, and that is a very, very exciting project for us. It's a little bit earlier stage than the Bulla Park one that we just talked about, but it's basically a large land holding in a very geologically prospective area. So we've got the Salatza critical mineral project there, and then we expanded our tenement position around that. And when we acquired those tenements, we acquired a huge amount of geophysical data as well, that we got with those tenements, and that is the big advantage that we currently have. So with that geophysical data, which is aeromagnetics, gravity, and EM data, this is the first time that particular area of the southern Fraser Range is mapped to a degree where you can actually pinpoint geophysical targets that you want to drill. And what we're excited about is this stuff really hasn't been tested at all in the past. So the challenge in the southern Fraser Range, and that area, by the way, has been considered highly prospective for a long time, but it's always been a tricky area to explore because it's covered by a little bit of transported cover. So your traditional geological tools of soil sampling don't really work there. Rock chips don't really work there because the minerals are not outcropping. And so the only real effective way is to get good geophysical data and then go after solid geophysical targets. And that's the stage we're at now. We've got that data, we've interpreted it. We found 5 highly exciting targets. By the way, three of them are chasing IOCG systems, so they're iron oxide copper gold systems, and the rocks there look like they're very prospective for that kind of mineralization. And then we've got 2 that are Broken Hill type deposits in terms of what they look like on the geophysics. And the classic Broken Hill type deposits are Cannington, for example. Some really large deposits around the world at BHT style. So we've got 5 targets covering both those styles of mineralization, and they can be tested reasonably quickly now by drilling into the gravity, magnetic, and EM anomalies that we've identified. And basically, we're really excited to just kick off that campaign. We announced last week we've partnered up with a company called Minrex Resources. And so Minrex is going to fund our exploration there. So they're going to basically fund $500,000 worth of exploration in return for an option of 50% of those tenements. And that $500,000 will be enough for us to drill test 5 targets on those tenements. So we are super excited. We think, we're chasing big targets. We're chasing big mineral deposits, and they will be tested via 1 or 2 drill holes each. And, we think we will have an answer sometime Q2, which is, I guess, this quarter tomorrow.
Yeah, this quarter tomorrow. And the fact that Minrex actually has $500,000 of their own skin in the game is a significant investment. So what makes this newly acquired Mystique project a strategic fit within the Fraser Range exploration portfolio?
Yeah, so that Mystique project was one that we announced maybe several weeks ago. We've acquired that off IGO, and there was a very good reason for acquiring that. Well, there's a few reasons, but there was a really good strategic fit in terms of what we're doing. So these targets that I talked about with the IOCG and the BHT, they're in the southern Fraser Range of WA, and we've drilled there with Salatza. That's an area we focus on. This project that we bought off IGO is just a little bit further up in that Albany Fraser belt, so it's maybe 100, 200 k's north of where we're operating now, but it's along that same belt. IGO, did some great work around there, but they don't really have a gold focus. So, for us, that tenement stood out as a real potential for gold. And there's some really nice gold targets identified there with calcrete anomalies and gold in soils, and there's prospectivity that we can't wait to drill out there. We're just waiting for that deal to complete, and then we'll plan a campaign there. But it's a nice fit into our Albany Fraser copper gold story, and I think it was really just an opportunistic kind of find for us, in the sense that we could pick it up off a company that had done some good work, but gold wasn't their focus.
I mean, it seems like the 3 rotating stories is gold, copper, and antimony, right? And you've got all 3 in your portfolio. So I want to segue into now around your Salatza project. What steps are being taken to advance the Salatza project following the recent increase in mineral resource estimates?
Yeah, so the Salatza project is this is the critical minerals project that is right next to the Fraser Range. When I talk about the copper gold targets there, the Salatza project is in that region. It's next to those tenements.
Yes.
That's what got us into that region in the first place. So, what we've done there is we've defined some very, very substantial rare earth, ilmenite, and scandium resources, and alumina, actually. So it's a regolith-hosted mineralization. It's from start to surface, and it's quite a unique deposit. There's not really anything like it, particularly with the scandium content that it has. And so we feel like that project is quite advanced. The headwinds we've kind of had are more macro in terms of sentiment about new rare earth developments, and general sort of pricing of some of these commodities hasn't been as strong as we would have liked. But that project is advanced and it's very well located. And what we are trying to do is find a strategic partner. We would
Yes.
like to partner up with someone who can help us progress the development through the studies. I think the next step for us is a pre-feasibility study. Oh, sorry, a scoping study, and then
Sure.
into a pre-feasibility study. And to do that, it really makes sense to partner up with someone who ultimately wants to get involved. From a future offtake potential. So that's our main focus at the moment. It's more commercial than sort of exploration focus, but
Hmm.
it is a outstanding project and it's very advanced. So we do think there's some latent value there.
We hope so too. So, how do you see the potential for high purity alumina, which is also known as HPA, production from the Salatza project's alumina resources?
Yeah, well, Salazar, it's such a unique deposit. It's got those alumina resources, as you mentioned.
Yep.
One of our options is to focus on the high purity alumina from that. So
Hmm.
what we're looking at is an integrated flow sheet. So what we would like to do is simplistically, we'd like to dig up the ore,
Hmm.
and then ideally the flow sheet would take it through a physical separation, which would probably remove the ilmenite. We've proved that to an extent through our
Hmm.
through our initial testing. So you get the ilmenite out, and you're left with rare earth, scandium, and alumina. And with what you can do then with the alumina is target that, and then you take that out and have a separate process that turns it into high purity alumina. High purity alumina is a hugely valuable commodity. It's a
Yep.
small market, but it's a hugely valuable commodity, and it's also got growing applications around the world. So it's an absolute potential option for us at Salazar. We haven't
Mhm.
landed on the final flow sheet yet, and that'll be influenced to some degree by if we do end up partnering up by someone coming in and working with us. But the HPA is a real potential there with a lot of value.
Mhm.
It fits in well to the overall Salazar development.
So you're saying if you find the right partner, a tremendous amount of value will be unlocked through the strategic partnership?
Yeah, we believe so. We think we've found the minerals. We've
Hmm.
done enough studies and work on it to understand how to extract those minerals,
Hmm.
and now we need to take the next step and take it through the formal studies, which will cost up the development in terms of capex, opex, and land on the ultimate flow sheet, which may include high purity alumina. So, yeah, I think if we can find the right partner, absolutely, we'll be able to unlock the value there.
Excellent. And I have a final question. So what's the strategic value does like Mystique project bring to West Cobar's gold exploration efforts? I mean, gold is a very strong theme at this present market.
Absolutely, yeah. Gold is definitely the standout.
Hmm.
We've got as we sort of mentioned, we've got copper and antimony in the portfolio, but gold is the one that is shining absolutely strong at the moment, and every day is a record price. And what the Mystique project brings is advanced gold targets that
Hmm.
we can't wait to drill, and we really want exposure to big WA gold deposits, and that's what we're looking for at the moment. So we're very excited with Mystique.
Excellent. So, Matt, look, I met up with you about 8 months ago, and a lot has advanced since then. So, I'm very curious for the next, let's say, quarter to the third quarter into the year, what sort of news flow can we expect from West Cobar?
Yeah, we've got a busy period coming up ahead of us. I think there's more. So let's go to Bulla Park. I think Bulla Park will have
Yes.
more met results. I think we'll
Hmm.
we'll be looking at further improvements in recoveries and the products that we've got out of the Bulla Park samples. What we also want to do is put an exploration target around Bulla Park and
Hmm.
talk about the scale of what we see there and maybe lay out some further exploration plans. Um, Ideally, we would also be in a position where we start drilling some of our additional targets there. But that's Bulla Park. So the next kind of project which will get a lot of news flow is the Fraser Range. And
Hmm.
so, we've got with Minrex now, we've got uh, basically the drilling campaign is kicking off. We're just working through approvals. Once those approvals are in, we expect to be drilling, and it'll be near-term activity with, very I guess quick turnaround on results. We're hoping, and we got five targets that we're chasing. They're all big targets, and we're going to do one after another. So that should be an exciting period for us. And then on Mystique, we look forward to completing on that transaction and getting out there and drilling those gold targets. We think that'll be super exciting. And of course, in the meantime, progress in terms of discussions about Salatza. I don't know if that time frame is a little bit out of our hands, but there's certainly activity potential there as well.
Excellent. Well, Matt, kudos to you. You've done a lot since we last had our discussion. Same time in 9 months' time?
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you. I would hope in 9 months' time we're talking about how successful the year was for us, and how much the market cap has grown and how much the company has matured, because I think our portfolio is excellent. We're just very undervalued at the moment, as I see it.
Well, you've got 4 key projects running up simultaneously, right? You've got Bulla Park, you've got Fraser Range, you have Salatza, and now the Mystique acquisition. So there's certainly a lot of activity. As normal, what I'll do is, if any of our members, investors, or viewers have any questions, please forward it to us, info@sharesinvalue.com.au or info@eastcoastresearch.com.au, and we'll forward it to you and your team, Matt, and you'll handle them for us.
That'd be great. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Congratulations on everything you have achieved so far, Matt, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks very much. Appreciate your time.